All right, hello everybody. So this is going to be lesson 2.2, solving one-step equations. Now this is a very simple kind of idea, and we're going to go pretty quick through these notes, but the main goal is I want to make sure you guys have a setup of how I usually teach it in class the correct way. There are going to be 2 pages on these notes, so this is video 1 of 2, so let's get started. And by the way, I hope everybody's doing well. So on this, what I want to get started is make sure that as we go through this process here, we're going to translate. We have done translations, which we did in 2.1. Now we're going to solve them by using addition, subtraction in one exercise, and then multiplication, division in the other, okay? So it's a simple setup, all right? There's 2 different properties we're using. Subtraction property of equality, which basically says to subtract, if you're going to subtract something to one side, you have to do it to the other, okay? So for example here, they start with the same number, all right? Because what you guys need to understand is that's how you have to look at things. When there's an equal sign, what you're trying to do is compare and equal both sides, okay? So you're trying to find one side to the other and compare those two to get them to equal. And then there's also an addition property, which means you can add anything to both sides and the numbers still remain the same, okay? So that's a simple setup because what it's doing is it wants you to solve each equation and leave one variable on the side. Now I've switched these around a little bit and made it a little challenging at times, but it shouldn't be too hard for most of you. All right, what we want to do is, remember, the equal sign splits this equation in 2. So I always teach students to write it kind of split a line down the middle. So what you do over here, you have to do on this side as well. And then make a vertical math problem, kind of like we've done in the past, okay? Like we've been showing you a little bit. So what you're doing is, you have h, you're not touching it, but because you want to get h by itself. So what you have to do is get rid of this 12. And so you have to create a 0 here. So how do you create a 0 here? Well, you have to add 12 to this side. So if you add 12 here and you add 12 here, negative 12 plus 12 is what? 0. So we have accomplished our goal. And then what you do is you just drag down the rest, okay? So this floats down to the bottom. So we have h, technically it's h plus 0. You take the equal sign down, and then you do your addition problem here. So this would be 27, negative 27 plus 12. Now here's where I want to make sure you guys understand your math problems, okay? This is saying negative 27, so you spent $27 somewhere. And then you're going home and your parents are like, hey, here's 12 bucks. So how much have you actually spent for that day? So think of this today as we're going through this as money, okay? So if you spent 27, but somebody gave you 12 bucks back, in reality, you've only spent $15, okay? Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It should. And then you get rid of the 0 here, so you got h equals negative 15. And that's it. Simple as that, okay? The next one here, split this equation in 2. We're going to subtract 8 so that this becomes 0. Drop the y down. And then if you subtract 8 on this side, you have to do it over here as well. 11 minus 8 is 3. So 3 equals y. Now, that is the right answer, but some of you may not like how that looks, so you can just swap them around real quick, okay? If you want to write it like that, you can, but just understand I left a variable on this side to kind of get your guys' brains to think, okay, it's okay to have one on the right-hand side now. All right, because maybe in middle school, you didn't focus on that. Everything had to, all the variables had to come to this side first. I don't teach it that way in high school because that's an unnecessary step. Okay, so add 8, you have a negative 9, so you spent $9, but somebody gave you 8, so technically you've only spent 1 for the day. There's your answer there. This one here, you subtract 3 to make that 0, right? So that would be a 0 and a u. Equals 10 minus 3 is 7, so 7 equals u. Now, if you want to rewrite it, you can, but simple enough, okay? All right, you guys, pause the video and practice on these 4. All right, so hopefully you guys have finished these up. Simple enough. Add 3 to both sides. Then you would have x equals 11. Now, you notice I'm skipping a step, because right away, instead of me just writing this over and over and over with the plus 0, you're eliminating it, right? So the only thing you have left is an x equals 11. Okay, on this side here, negative 4, so you have 6 equals w. This side, add 4. Okay, you have v equals 2. And then this side here, negative 3. And then you would have negative 3, so negative 10 equals w. So if you struggled with this one, make sure you remember you spent 7, then you went and spent 3. How much have you spent for the day? 10, okay? So please make sure you guys understand that concept. Now I'm going to throw in a couple of different versions of equations here because I want to challenge your guys' mentality of decimals and fractions, okay? I need to make sure that you guys can not get freaked out by fractions, but then also be able to solve decimals, because in the real world, you will be dealing with decimals when it comes to this, especially in relation to money and change, okay? So, same setup though. Nothing's gonna be different, all right? We're still gonna subtract this 1.86 from both sides. So, you have that set up there, and then you do x equals. This becomes 0, so that cancels out, right? So you cancel this one out, and then you would probably need to put in a calculator that answer there, or do the simple math. That's why I like the vertical style, right? Because then we should know that this would be 6 and 6 is 0. And then you would drop this down. You could do your little old school subtraction if you guys don't remember how to do that, right? Where you cross this off. I hope you guys learned it that way. I know the elementary, I don't want to talk about it. It's a little different. But cross it off because you carry the 1 from this side, right? So that's a 9, and then that would be a 5. 6 minus 1 is 5. So answer is, and that 5 is horrible, so I'm going to rewrite it, okay? 590. All right, so same thing. All right, you would add now, because that's a negative number, you got to add 629. So you would add 629 here on this side. So you end up with V equals, because these cancel out. And then that would be a 9 on, remember there's a 0 here, so that would be adding together, be a 9 on the outside, and then another 9, so sorry, I did it the wrong way, but I put the dot in the wrong spot, so it'd be 9 plus 9, 6 and 4 is 10. There you go, simple enough, right? You're gonna have questions like this on your Alex homework. All right, now fractions. Now what I want you guys to do is, with fractions, I don't want you to freak out about it, but what I want you to do is actually learn how to move these bad boys, okay? So this is a positive 3/4. So I actually want you to subtract 3/4 from both sides. And so when you do that, 3/4 minus 3/4 is 0, right? So you've accomplished your goal of getting rid of it and making it just be on this side. And so then you would come over here and put minus 3/4, just like that. Now what I want you to understand is you guys got to think back to common denominators, right? So 1/2 actually is the same thing as saying, so this is going to be equals. I want you to change this to make it the common denominator of 4. So this is still 3/4, but remember, 1/2. How do I make it a 4? You'd multiply it by 2, because 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2. Hopefully you guys remember that kind of stuff. And if not, here's a great lesson on remembering, right? And now you just combine the terms. So 2 minus 3 is a negative, so it's V equals negative 1/4, okay? I want you to work on the fractions part. Sorry, my pen goes a little crazy on this side. I need to recalibrate it. Okay, this one right here, okay, this is a negative 1/2, all right? So we're gonna add 1/2 to both sides. So you add 1/2 over here as well, okay? And then so you drop this down, that's just W, negative 5/8. And then once again, what is the change, okay? If I'm adding 1/2 to both sides, how would I get it to 8? You multiply the top by 4, right? So you guys should remember that 4/8 would be reduced to 1/2, or you can multiply it out, so it doesn't matter. And then you get W equals negative 1/8, okay, when you combine those together. Hopefully you guys understand. Simple, right? Don't freak out. Move the fraction, and then make the denominators the same for the last 2. All right, I want you to practice on these 4. All right. On these, as you guys are going through, this will be the last little note for this video here. We're going to go through these real quick. Make sure you guys add 7.1 to both sides. Okay, and then as you go, you'd have x, because that cancels out. And then this is, I'm going to put a 0 to help me with the addition of it. So that's a 3, a 6, and a 10. Okay, hopefully you guys have that. This is going to be a negative, because that's a positive. And now I got to do a little bit of old school subtraction. So that's going to be W equals. So that would be 15. That was the ugliest looking thing I've ever seen. Okay, so this would be 15, and then this would turn into a 6. All right, so that would be 7, and then that would be 1.7. Simple, right? hopefully you guys can remember how to do that. Now, this side here, that's a negative number, so we got to add a positive, because negative plus a positive and cancels out to 0. So we got 3, and then this is going to be 3/5. Now, some of you may challenge and say, what's the common denominator between 6 and 5? Well, just multiply it out, right, and make it 30. So that'll make it easy. So that way, if I'm going equals a negative, and then I draw it twice, and then it's a plus here. So if I make this 30, and I make this 30, and then just know, what's the top going to be? You're multiplying this by 5 to get 30, so that means you're going to multiply that by 5. And you're multiplying this by 6, from 6 times 5 is 30, so it's going to be 6 times 3 is 18. All right, and now you do your simple math, where it'd have -5 plus 18. So you had $18, you spent 5, how much do you have left? It's going to be 13 over 30, okay? This is a very challenging thing, but I want to make sure you guys understand how to do this process, all right? Fractions you should not be afraid of them. You should conquer them. And show them who's boss, all right? So -1/3, just like that. So you put these together, then you would simplify that, equals -5 over 6. Now, same thing, how do I make this a 6 right here? You'd multiply this by 3 times 2 is 6, so that means the 2 goes up there. And then you combine these terms, -5 and -2, ends up being v equals -7 over 6. All right, simple enough, but making sure don't get freaked out by the fractions, okay? So that's it for this lesson. Continue to work on the homework, and then page 2, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing.